All right, welcome to the After the Show podcast. After the podcast show videocast. I'm not sure what to call it, but I am Chris Schaefer, and my co-host on one or two sides is Jason Rothman.
Everybody.
Jason, you can now see our faces. Level of disappointment may be lower or higher than some, but um, uh, I'm feeling pretty confident. You know, I, 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 I think we've got some pretty good discussion points here. This is a much more casual discussion for us, just kind of back and forth between Jason and I about certain topics. So I know, Jason, you said you had a couple things that came to mind while you were recording the podcast.
Yeah, end of the week show that we do. So it's just I all week I'm in AdWords campaigns, talking to clients, talking to Google sometimes, and a lot of stuff comes up, and I always think, hey, what would Chris think about this? So got a couple things that came up during the week, and then the thing that came up during episode 5 of our podcast where we talked about bid strategies was you mentioned that in one case where you had a competitor bid higher than you, and then you fought back by using the bid higher than a competitor strategy. You said that as their position dropped, their performance dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you talked about like conversion rates, cost per conversion. And one thing that I've kind of seen and heard rumors about, but just don't have any hard data on, is that and I've been told this, and I don't know if I necessarily believe it, but I've been told as the position drops, the quality of the traffic drops. I don't know why that would ever be true, because the thing about Google is people search for your keywords and they click on your ad if you give them what they're looking for. But basically they were saying that this person was saying if you get in the top 3 or now top 4, the traffic quality is better. People who click on ads at the bottom of the page aren't as serious. Have you heard of that? And in this case, what did you see their performance dropping as their position dropped?
Well, first, for this individual client, it was for a moving box. It's a type of moving box that people can rent a whole bunch of moving boxes and then pile stuff in them and then have a company come pick them up.
Okay.
Pick up all those moving boxes. So it's the kind of thing that people search for and kind of need it. They're looking for a solution kind of quickly. It's
Okay.
not super expensive. Not a big commitment. They just need a solution. This is an easy solution. So for them, it was valuable for them to be up in the first to second position because they were a very unique product that showed next to a lot of very typical solutions that weren't
Okay.
quite so unique. So it was value for them to show up at the top, that people saw them quickly. When they started dropping lower, the competitor that did kind of what they did, I think they just assumed that was the only person who did it, and they converted.
Oh, okay. So
Right,
that
so
is
their
that's
click
a
through rate, so their probability of conversion went down simply because their click through rates went down. They got less attention because
okay.
I think the competitor was duplicating what we were doing in the ad copy. They were doing the same kind of thing. Now, to address the comment about less quality traffic out
Right.
of first or second position, at the
Right.
top or maybe middle of the page,
Right.
I I've found it to be almost a universal rule that if I bring the position down from first position to second or third position,
Okay.
my conversion rate goes up.
Goes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's I'd say more than half of my clients can follow that rule pretty easily.
That's
I
weird. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it's not something I expect, but I think the way I explain it to my clients is this. A person's clicking, and the first reaction is just look at the first ad and click it, right? You get a lot of traffic, and you get, let's say, a 1% conversion rate,
Right.
okay? 1 out of every 10.
Right.
Or, well, no, 1 out of every, well, anyway, 1%. Let's leave the math for a different video cast. But if you're in second position or third position, you're not getting that initial first click, right? The very first thing people do as soon as they see your ad,
Right.
they don't click on it immediately. So your click through rate will go down, but your conversion rate will go up because you get a little bit more of the think and click
Okay.
type of traffic. That's my strategy. I mean, but I have the numbers and I've seen it. There's one client I've been, with this same theory for like 2 years,
Right.
and it's solid every time for that specific industry.
Okay.
So that's why I don't think the quality of traffic is any worse. I think you get less clicks, you get
Okay.
lower click-through
That
rates.
that that tells us, that explains why I think that person was saying that, and that kind of gives me more. I'm now seeing the bigger picture. It's not different traffic; it's the same traffic at a different time in their search
Hmm.
process. So, like with moving companies, I've got a mover here in Oklahoma City. We do. I mean, most of my campaigns, the position's always at the top of the page, 1 through 4 now, but usually 1 through 3. But for them, the cost per click was getting a little bit too high, so we tried to lower the position to like 4, 5, 6, 7, a little bit. But mostly, it used to be what was on the side of the page, and
Yeah, I was
the
gonna say seven's gone
yeah, that's
now.
gone
But yeah.
now. But at the time, it was on the side of the page. So what we were getting was a lower cost per click, but the conversion rates went way down. And
Hmm.
then when we go back up to positions 1, 2, 3, the conversion rates go way up. And even though those higher clicks cost more, since the conversion rate goes up, the cost per conversion was actually lower than the lower positions. And so the way I thought about that was, it just reminded me of it, the way you were saying it's the same traffic but a different process. Is after someone's seen 3 or 4 Oklahoma City movers, they're they're getting leads, and they're getting quotes, and they're fulfilling their search process. So I think what happens for this mover is that if they're the fifth or sixth mover that they look at, they're not as likely to fill out a form or call them. But if they're in the first three and they're one of the first three movers that they're going to plan to contact, they actually do contact them. So I've seen that same thing here, where it doesn't make sense without thinking about it that the higher positions would have better conversion rates, but I have seen that with movers, and that's the one time I've experienced that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. It's I mean, have you found that have you ever seen that in the case of lowering bids, thus lowering your average position, that you get better conversion rates for anything outside of that particular client or
well,
industry?
I know in this one it was better conversion rates the higher they were up for movers. Um,
Huh.
but I just don't have a lot of data to go on because most of my campaigns are near the top of the page anyway.
Okay.
Um, but
Well, I know if a client starts saying, like, I don't want to pay this much per click, or we need
right,
to lower our budget or
right,
something like that. If they start pushing back on anything except for just volume of leads,
right,
um, my first go-to thing is, okay, let's drop to the second or third position. We don't have to be first place all the time, and typically it ends up being, of course, it's less volume. I mean, you're still going to spend the money, but the click-through rate will go down, and you're going to spend less money over a certain time period
right,
of the day. So if you have a 60% impression share, you'll have even less.
right.
But most of the time, it ends up being a better conversion rate.
Well, the thing I'm always looking at the cost per conversion, and the only time I'm able to lower bids, lower the cost per conversion, but still spend the full budget, is when the search volume for a group of keywords is huge compared to my client's budget. So that's the only time I'm really actively trying to get to a lower position with
Hmm.
lower cost per clicks. Is like, I work with someone in the scholarship space, and he spends $40 a day, and if he wanted to, he could spend probably 500. So we're able to bid lower, but still use up his budget at a lower click through rate, and that leads to a lower cost per conversion. So, but most of the time, the clients want to show up in the top three, and we need to get the clicks. So,
Yeah.
um, I had a couple more things, but I think, like you were saying before this, let's keep these short. So we'll
Yeah.
get back at it in another video. But why don't you take us out and tell people where to go?
Yeah. So thanks for watching. This is the first of our series of the after show for the Paid Search podcast. You can look forward to some unique discussions, a little more intimate discussions on some things me and Jason are want to talk about, and what's happening with us or questions we want to present to each other.
Right.
But thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe, and of course follow us over on the Paid Search podcast, the Paid Search podcast.com. We present brand new content, very focused new content on paid search marketing, specifically Google AdWords,
Right.
every week, every Monday.
Every
And
Monday.
we'll be here. And we appreciate you guys watching.
Thanks, everyone.